The big day is finally here. I can scarcely believe it. I'm going to start by introducing the amazing Gabrial Millar to deliver a welcome to country. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, here today for Australia's Great North Conference 2025. My name is Gabrial Millar, a proud Larrakia and Wajigan woman, descendant of the Gabrial family. Today we gather on the sacred land of the Larrakia people. Larrakia country runs from Cox Peninsula in the west, Gun Point in the north, Adelaide River in the east, and down to Menton Dam area southwards. I want to begin by acknowledging the unceded lands of the many First Nations people of the Northern Territory, the sovereign custodians of country, culture, story, and law. I pay my deep respects to the elders past and present, and to the children, those learning, dreaming, and carrying the future forward. This country has held my family for generations. It knows our footsteps. It knows our stories that are etched into every tree, every river, every rock. It is not just land, it is a living library of wisdom, a testament to resilience and a keeper of identity. Today, I want to speak from a deeply personal place, because my connection to this country is not only cultural, it is generational. I stand here because my mother has walked this land before me. She has walked it with strength, grace, and an unshakable connection to her culture and her family. And before her, my grandmother walked this country, carrying stories of survival and deep wisdom. These women have shaped me, not only through their words, but through their actions, their sacrifices, and their unwavering love for community and country. And now I walk this land alongside my son and my siblings, and I do so with hope. Hope that the stories we pass down will still have rivers to echo through, trees to be whispered in, and skies that hold stars and not smog. To be able to raise them on this country that has raised and nurtured our people before us, to share stories with them that have been spoken through time, to see them grow strong in culture and proud in identity. That is a gift, and it is the driving force behind my presence in this room today and my work in the environmental space. This conference comes at a time when country is calling out to us, not just to protect it, but to remember our place within it. Across the Great North, we are facing challenges that test our resilience. Climate change, loss of biodiversity, water stress, and the slow forgetting of old ways. But these challenges are not just environmental, they are deeply human. They remind us that when we lose our connection to country, we lose part of ourselves. We are standing together in the face of challenges that affect us all, issues that are felt deeply on country and in our communities. These challenges are being more so tested by the idea that the North is a frontier for profit and not a living, breathing system of country and culture. Develop the North, they say, as if this land is waiting to be built upon, improved and tamed. But for us, the North has always been developed through tens of thousands of years of deep knowledge, sustainable living, and cultural connection. True development doesn't come from digging into country and draining its resources. It comes from nurturing what already exists. Strong communities, healthy ecosystems, and wisdoms of those who have cared for this country forever. The future of the North lies in imagining new ways of living in harmony with the land, not above it, not separate from it, but as part of it. When we come together as landholders, land carers, traditional owners, scientists, community members, and advocates, we don't just exchange knowledge, we weave it together. We remember that strength comes from relationship with each other and with the earth. As First Nations people, we are born with that understanding. We are the original caretakers, understanding that country is not just a resource, it is a relative, it is our kin, it is our teacher. Through quiet care, through ceremony, through fire and water and songlines, our people have always known that connection is protection. Every day that we work, we talk, we support each other, we are continuing a legacy of strength, resilience, and respect that has been passed down through generations of people before us. So as we gather here today, I want to offer you not just a welcome, but an invitation to listen deeply, not only to each other, but to the land beneath your feet, to see that your work, your presence, and your care matters. Let this be a place where we are reminded that hope lives where connection grows, that healing our environment starts with healing our relationship to it, remembering that this is more than a conference, but a gathering of something bigger, in a future where our babies and their babies can still marvel at the great lengths our shorebirds migrate, where they can still watch the mangroves breathe with the tide, trace the rings in an old tree and know that it has seen generations, and to pause in awe as a pod of dolphins pass through our harbour at sunset, remembering that our work today, our voices, the changes we make will echo through generations. As I welcome you to Larrakia country, I'd like to bring to the forefront of our minds the recent and harrowing forecasts for our future in the NT. I ask you to look around and feel the strength and the sacredness of this place, our sea, our sky, our land, because country is speaking, and she is warning us. The changes we once thought were far away are here. The storms are stronger, the heat is rising, and our sacred places along the coast are under threat. As Larrakia people, we feel this deeply, not just as environmental damage, but as harm to our spirit, our culture, and our future. We must act now, together, to take care of country, so that she can keep taking care of all of us. I thank you wholeheartedly for your presence and your willingness to partake in this ceremony. Thank you for honouring this country, Larrakia country, which has held us today and will hold the future we build together tomorrow. Take care of each other. And lastly, this always was and always will be Larrakia land. Thank you.
I scarcely know how to respond to that incredibly beautiful welcome to country. Thank you so much, Gabriel. Many of you here today were very lucky last night to be on a cruise on Larrakia country of Darwin Harbour, which has been cherished and cared for by Larrakia people for many, many millennia. You experienced the shimmer of this country and what is at stake here. And shimmer is a term that I want to reflect on a bit later. But this place, Gabrial Millar, is special, and we are honoured and privileged to be gathering here for this landmark event, but it also means we have a responsibility to this place. Larrakia country is the place in Northern Australia that has perhaps been most directly impacted by colonisation, without consent and without reparations to this day. Since Surveyor Goyder was sent by the South Australian government to divide Larrakia country into neat surveyed lots back in 1869, thus enacting legal dispossession through the violence of private property, Larrakia people have in many ways led the defence of country across Northern Australia. Through wars, cyclones, incarceration, the violence of native title and land rights, and the destruction of the settler colony we call Darwin on 4 occasions, Larrakia custodianship and care has remained constant and will remain so long after we settlers have left. I want to specifically acknowledge the leadership of Larrakia people in current campaigns here on Larrakia country, from the battle to save Lee Point to the fight to protect Middle Arm. I do want to name a few people who our organisation has been privileged to work with, including Tibby Quoll, Eric Fijo, Lorraine Williams and Donna Jackson. I also want to acknowledge traditional owners from across Northern Australia, from the Kimberley to the Cape, from the arid lands to the wet tropics, who are here with us for this event, and the many thousands of people who can't be here. Any of the work we do here across the north must begin from the premise that this is all unceded Aboriginal land. We would like to acknowledge the generous funders who have made this conference possible, including the Nature Impact Collective, the Meliadora Fund, Purva's Environmental Fund, Triple and many others, and our amazing sponsors, the Australian Conservation Foundation, the Environmental Defenders Office, Environmental Justice Australia, the Nature Conservancy, the Kimberley Like Nowhere Else campaign, the Protect Beautiful Queensland campaign, and the Territory Rivers campaign. Your support has meant that we have been able to ensure that the participation of people from the remotest parts of Australia, the Torres Strait, the Kimberley and the Red Centre. We thank you so much and recognise your organisation's ongoing commitment to and support for the future of Northern Australia. My name's Kirsty Howie and I'm the Executive Director of the Environment Centre NT. And I stand here really proudly with my incredible colleagues from environmental organisations spanning the north of Australia. And it's immensely exciting for us to be able to come together in a spirit of collaboration and to host this event, which is timely for reasons we'll all discover over the next couple of days. I'm going to now introduce my colleagues and ask them to briefly speak about their organisations and the conference themes. So I'll start with Martin Pritchard from Environs Kimberley.
Thank you very much, Kirsty, and thank you so much for the welcome to Larrakia country. Real privilege to be here. I'd also like to acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded here, nor in any nation across this continent, and especially the Kimberley. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners who've come from the Kimberley, Dr. Ampolina, Gordon Smith, Renee Dingo, and Zainal Bin Busa. And I'd also like to acknowledge my Environs Kimberley colleagues who are here as well. Environs Kimberley was set up 30 years ago by 3 people sitting around the kitchen table in Broome, worried about the 3 dams and the 250,000 hectares of cotton that was planned for the central Kimberley. They joined together with traditional owners and other groups like ACF, Conservation Council. It took 7 years, that campaign was won. And the traditional owners were central to that with a group they called Bandaral Nari. That's our origin story. Since then, we've been fighting for the Kimberley. We've stopped the coal mine on the banks of the Marawara Fitzroy River. We've stopped the copper mine at Horizontal Falls. We've stopped the largest LNG plant in the world at James Price Point. We've got 30,000 square kilometres, 75% of the Kimberley coast in a marine park. 19 million hectares of the West Kimberley is National Heritage listed. And I say these things because it was not Environs Kimberley who did all this stuff. We did it in an alliance and we did it with traditional owners. That's the only way that it can work. And we did it with our southern friends. Very briefly, we've got people and place as a theme. Place. What we know is, what my experience is, that people fall in love with place. They don't fall in love with policies, they fall in love with place. And what that leads to is the protection of really special places. Jabiluka, the Franklin, James Price Point, Cape York, the southwest forests of Western Australia. That's how we win the passion that people have for place. And of course, we can't do it without people. Sitting in the rock shelter, looking over the savannah, the Leonard River flowing through the middle of it. Right next to you is the site where an axe head was found that was 45,000 years old. You sit there, you contemplate how many generations that has been, and then you realize the incredible wisdom and care for country that traditional owners have always had. And so, if we want to protect this place, this great northern land, we have to unite across the north and we need support from across the south. That's the way we are going to protect Northern Australia. Thank you.
I'm Bronwyn. I'm the director of the Cairns and Far North Environment Centre. For more than 40 years, CAFNEC has been advocating for ecosystems and a safe climate across Far North Queensland, from Cardwell to the Torres Strait Islands and west to the Gulf of Carpentaria. Sovereignty was never ceded by the First Peoples of Australia, and I want to thank traditional owners for their knowledge, strength, and wisdom that continue to guide us. I'm honoured to be here in Gabrial Millar, Darwin for the first time on Larrakia country, and grateful to be joined here by traditional owners of Far North Queensland, and Zenith Kess, Auntie Sharon Brady, Nerida Brown, Lala Gutchin, and Valmay Turpin. And I also want to acknowledge Dr. Ruth Link and Jiritju 4 Mile, who unfortunately couldn't make it to the conference. In Far North Queensland, we, and I'm using the royal we because this was before my time, we fought for and won World Heritage protections for the wet tropics rainforests and the Great Barrier Reef. But now, these ecosystems are facing a new threat, climate change. We're seeing our reef bleach over and over again. And we're seeing our wet tropics being ripped apart by floods and landslips, and key pollinators for the wet tropics being taken out by back-to-back heat waves. The recently released National Climate Risk Assessment makes it clearer than ever that Northern Australia faces catastrophic risks to our ecosystems and communities from the burning of coal and gas. Yet in the very week of its release, the federal government approved the extension of this nation's largest gas hub in the northwest, and the Queensland government vowed to keep digging coal and burning coal for decades to come. These decisions trade our future for short-term profit, ignoring the collapse of the very life support systems that we all depend on. Our national environment laws remain blind to the greatest threat of all, climate change. Meanwhile, our most powerful decision makers recite lines about achievable targets and cost-benefit analyses, and we're left asking, achievable for who? And whose costs are being counted? And whose futures are being written off? We're all here because we're not willing to give up on the North, its ancient places and peoples. And we know that we must stand together to fight for our futures. And we thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Bronwyn. My name is Alex. I'd also like to acknowledge Larrakia unceded sovereignty. I'd also like to acknowledge knowledge holders that have come up from the Central Deserts, Camille and Veronica Dobson, Catherine Gilby, and Josie Douglas. I work at the Arid Lands Environment Centre in Mbantua, Alice Springs on Aranda Country. We have a 45-year history working with and listening to communities caring for the arid lands, from places like Uluru, Katajuda, Karitunda, Australia's 10 deserts, and the McDonnell Ranges. The arid lands are unique and diverse. Healthy arid landscapes at this time of year are carpets of wildflowers, displays of yellows, pinks, purples, and blues, but many of these arid lands are sick. For too long, the arid lands have been dismissed, classified by colonial logics as empty, unproductive wastelands, the outback. The reproduction of these colonial logics drive the developing the North and defend the North agendas. These logics have allowed bufflegrass to be planted across inland Australia, driving landscape transformation and ecosystem collapse. They've allowed for water-thirsty agricultural projects such as that at Singleton Station, giving up to 1 trillion litres of groundwater for free. Fracking, mining, nuclear waste, militarism, and more put the arid lands and the North at risk. At the same time, these logics allow for racialised crime panic to grip the North, unjustly targeting First Nations people. This makes the third theme for this conference, democracy and economy, so important. Imagining what a just alternative to a militarised, anti-democratic and extractivist economy is a collective challenge and imperative for us all. We are very aware of the problems that we face, but it's really exciting to come together and learn from the necessary work that is already happening on the ground, such as we'll listen to the Hybrid Economic Futures panel. In having these conversations, I hope that we can think collectively on how work like this can be expanded and scaled up for a just, thriving future. And I'll pass it back to Kirsty.
Thank you to my beautiful colleagues and friends. For many years, we've been talking about coming together in an alliance to build the kind of future we want to see here in Northern Australia. We're all place-based organisations, and we have a collective desire to build the political power of Northern Australia to disrupt dominant paradigms led by and from the places and communities in the North. And we need all of you here to help us achieve that vision. This isn't just any conference. We have invited you all here in person with really considered intent, moral clarity, and of course, urgency. We've carefully deliberated on the structure, flow, speakers, audience, and purpose of this gathering for months now. We are weaving us all together into a collective experience, which we hope will be deeply impactful and galvanise us to act together with a shared purpose into the future. Every person in here is here for a reason, has made a deliberate choice to be here, and for that we are immensely grateful. Northern Australia is special, but we are in peril, and that's why we've moved the centre of gravity here this week. Encompassing a third of Australia's landmass, but with the fewest people, Northern Australia's nature is outstanding on a global scale. We have the most extensive, intact, tropical savanna ecosystem remaining on the planet, extending as far as the eye can see in an endless expanse. We have some of the last free-flowing rivers remaining on Earth, their flows governed by the ebbs and flows of seasons rather than irrigators. Vast floodplains filled during the wet season to support some of the most biodiverse landscapes on Earth. Northern Australia's coastline is in the top 4% of the least spoiled coastlines in the world. These elements together make up one of the very few large natural areas remaining on Earth, alongside global treasures such as the Amazon rainforest and the polar wilderness of Antarctica. Extraordinarily, most land in Northern Australia is subject to some form of Indigenous property rights recognised under Western law, insufficient and compromised though this recognition can sometimes be. And all country in the north continues to be managed and cared for by First Nations people who have passed their cultural and ecological knowledge and skills to countless generations, despite the devastating impacts of colonisation. But the north is also a sacrifice zone, or what activist and philosopher Val Plumwood named a shadow place. Shadow places are the often unknown, unseen, or disregarded places, ecologically and culturally exploited, that support privileged lifestyles elsewhere. Shadow places demonstrate the unjust distribution of suffering under global capitalism and colonial legacies. We have learned the true toll of the shadowing of Northern Australia this week. The National Climate Risk Assessment has laid bare the devastation that will be caused by climate change here in the north. The future it portends for this place is terrifying. Much of Northern Australia is likely to experience near unlivable conditions should global temperatures increase by around 3 degrees. And this could be a reality within 40 years. These kinds of extreme temperatures are currently only found in 0.8% of the planet, mostly in the Sahara. If we don't act urgently, the north may well largely be unfit for human habitation, let alone the myriad more than human species within which we are inextricably enmeshed in generations past and in generations to come. It's hard to think about, let alone act on. But make no mistake, this is deliberate. The north of Australia has always been a policy obsession for the Australian government, with the myth that large-scale extractive development and militarism will bring untold wealth on rinse and repeat from successive governments since Goyder first turned up on Larrakia country all those years ago. The key characteristic of northern development has been that it has been a complete failure, with scarred landscapes and disempowered communities left in their wake. Yet this bizarrely just seems to justify more of the same. This year is the 10th anniversary of the Abbott government's white paper on developing Northern Australia, setting out an extractive vision that well-paid bureaucrats feverishly try and fail to implement to bring us wealth. Right now, and paradoxically, given the future we face, it's all about fossil fuel expansion via fracking in the Beetaloo Basin in the Northern Territory and Canning Basin in the Kimberley. Offshore gas developments like Woodside's Browse Basin, the Northwest Shelf, and Santos's Barossa gas field. And the taxpayer-funded Middle Arm gas and petrochemical hub. If they go ahead, these projects will unleash billions of tonnes of emissions, carbon bombs by any measure, and completely incompatible with commitments made by this country under the Paris Agreement, and indeed, with a livable future for the North. Of course, all these projects are a suicide mission for Northern Australia, bringing us ever closer to climate and biodiversity collapse. So what do you do when all you love is being trashed? I want for a moment to return to the concept of shimmer that I mentioned earlier, which has been written about by the late Deborah Bird-Rose, but taken from the Yolngu concept of brilliance, or that which shimmers. This invokes an ethical value, something that helps call us into attention and interrelationality with beings more than human. It's about what is felt in the interactions between living things and in these moments of encounter. It's a pulse of power and of life, often precarious, that propels us to act, to attend, to care, and to not look away. If you know Northern Australia and you care for it, you have experienced shimmer. Such is the splendour of these natural and cultural landscapes. Shimmer reminds us that we must pay attention to shadow places, to urge a greater sense of responsibility and connection to them. That's why you're here, to collectively learn together, to foster a sense of collectivity, united purpose, and deep collaboration. Shimmer is about world making and consciously creating the future that we want and need. Now more than ever, it's essential that voices from the ground are amplified, so solutions can be led by those communities, and our world-class Northern Australian ecosystems are protected, flourishing, and managed by First Nations people for the next 60,000 years. We must work with communities so that solutions to the crises we face are not imposed from the outside, but emerge from the lived experience and expertise of those here. We are asking you to not only experience the collective effervescence that this conference brings, but also commit to taking action after the conference to work towards a different future for Northern Australia. And at the end of this conference, we're hoping that all delegates will sign on to a declaration on Australia's Great North, which will be distributed to you all by email and which will be refined through the conference. So I'll finish with some words from Deborah Bird-Rose. We are not alone in time or place. We are at home where our kind of life came into being, and we are members of entangled generations of Earth life, generations that succeed each other in time and place. The North is a home, not a sacrifice zone. A heartfelt thank you to you all for coming here.